All right, welcome back. Uh, I'm here with Michael Guerin. My name's David Margolin, and we're here to do our monthly forecast discussion. I think in today's, I was just talking to Michael offline. Uh, no surprises on your screen. We're going to spend some time talking about Hurricane Beryl. A lot to talk about there. And then we're going to do our usual recap of June now that it's July 1st. And I think most know that June at this point, from a CDD perspective, came in, I believe, it's is the highest on record since 1950. So I don't think that's going to be a surprise to too many folks. But we'll talk more about that, and then we'll spend the last remaining time looking ahead at what's going to happen here in July. And with that, I think I'm going to stop sharing because I think Michael, you're going to take the reins here and talk a little bit more about Beryl. Is that right?
Yep. And okay, let's see. Screen sharing. I'm always a little slow, but okay. So I'm on Tropical Tidbits, which does have, which I like to use. It has pretty much everything you would want. Some, NOAA slash National Hurricane Center references, some model forecasts on the right, intensity guidance, etc., as well as a surface plot. First thing I want to just point out, Beryl is currently at 130 knot winds, which I think puts it into category 4. My knot to miles per hour conversion in my head isn't what it used to be, so quite strong regardless. As you can see on the still from the satellite, looks quite powerful. A lot of those extremely cold cloud tops. Pressure at 946. I believe this is actually down almost 10 millibars still from this morning. I think it was 950 something when I looked around 9 or 10 a.m. So still strengthening, which is a little crazy considering it's July 1st. So anyone who was concerned that the hurricane season might not start till August, well, here you go. Just gonna look at so we have the satellite loop here from the last what is this, 3 4 hours? Yeah, about 4 hours. So you can see a pretty healthy looking cyclone there, pretty symmetrical, a lot of cold cloud tops around the eye. It's hard to see, but there are a couple of little mesovortices kind of swirling around in there. Not sure if you can see that all that well, but they're there if you look close enough. Let's see if I can just. I think there's another one, but the stupid zoom bar is in my way, and I can't click. Okay, there we go. Okay, so this is the National Hurricane Center's expected path. Obviously, it's expected to continue to be a major hurricane as it makes its way through the, I guess, southern Caribbean. Supposed to pass by pretty close to Jamaica, so Jamaica's in a hurricane watch as a result. Probably a lot of nothing too crazy is going to happen to, I think is that the Dominican Republic and Haiti? Yes, I think so. So probably nothing going to happen to them there. But then as the cone goes further, you can see it's looking to hit the Mexico or possibly around Belize before mostly it seems most of the cone appears to take it into the Gulf of Mexico. What it does after that is still kind of up in the air. That's quite a few days away. That's Saturday. That's, I believe, about 5 days from now, 6 days from now. So a lot of time for anything to change. However, the latest, not to, this is not a forecast by any means, but just to kind of show what the some of the GFS ensembles are showing. This is from this morning, 12Z this morning. So they do have a lot of the models curving it back towards the United States. So this is not going to happen for sure. We'll just want to make that abundantly clear. This does not mean it's going to happen, but it is something that people on the Gulf Coast need to be aware of, just to kind of keep an eye on things. There's no need to panic or anything like that. This is quite a ways out, and even if this does curve, the intensity of a storm, usually the longer a storm is active, I believe the harder it is for it to kind of maintain its strength, and you'd have to worry more about rain than wind and stuff like that. But as we mentioned last time, and on our webcast with Matt, you need to have plans in place for something like this to happen. So if you're on the Gulf Coast and, in the general cone here, I'll just kind of say from Texas to broadly, looks like the easternmost one takes it to Louisiana. If you're in that general area, keep an eye on it, have a plan in place so that if Hurricane Beryl does come into your neck of the woods, you have a plan in place and you don't have to rush to the store, etc., or anything else. We mentioned last time, the last video, we mentioned a whole bunch of different things you can do to prepare yourself. And, if you haven't done it yet, now would be the time to start getting ready. If you need to evacuate, especially if you're on the coast or in an area prone to flooding, you don't, etc. Dave, do you have anything you want to add in to any of that?
Uh, no, it just you might want to show if you have it here to the EC spaghettis too.
Let's see.
Again, just to highlight the fact that there's a lot of uncertainty
Yeah.
once it gets.
I think
Or it
this.
looks like too, you might, yeah, I was going to say some of these. So I just wanted to give another perspective on this.
Right. Yeah. Of course.
The DFS is obviously more of a scary solution, I guess, if you're on the Texas coast. But there's a lot of other models here that show Mexico as a much more favored likely outcome here. And again, like what you said, it's always good to prepare. Take especially there's kind of like maybe multiple times where you want to kind of prepare. I would imagine if you're on the Gulf Coast, one is before the season, you kind of do your full kind of preparation. But then there's, okay, maybe it's 5 to possibly 10 days and there's a threat, i.e. something like this, even if it's a low threat and you kind of want to go back again and say, all right, let's just, double check for those important things, just to make sure we have in line. And yeah, this to me is one of those situations where you're 5 to 10 days out. If you're on the Texas coast, there's definitely a non-zero threat. It's a good time to kind of just reset and just make sure that you have whatever your family thinks are the essentials, and also to have that plan in place too if it gets to a point where you guys think that you want to evacuate.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, not trying to. There's no fear mongering going on here. We're just pointing out that there's, like Dave said, a non-zero chance that this could curve towards someplace like Texas or the Gulf Coast. But as you can see, a lot of them. I think there's only, yeah, it looks like only really one model. I'm not sure. I think this is the CEMI. I'm not sure which one that is. That might be a Canadian model. Takes it towards the U.S. coast, other than the GFS ensembles. Most of them take it into Mexico, where it would have really no impact on the United States, other than maybe just enhancing some rainfall if there's a cold front somewhere. That's the only thing I could think of. And of course, as always, it even says it here on the map. Don't use this map to make decisions. Seek official info from the National Hurricane Center / NOAA, but mostly the National Hurricane Center, same thing, but you know what I mean. So that should pretty much cover the hurricane. Unless you want I'll just add in intensity seems to have it, gradually weakening over the course, as does the NHC. So, luckily for anyone impacted, it doesn't look like it will be as bad as it could have been. Hopefully. Fingers crossed, anyway.
All right. All right. Thanks, Mike. So let's see. I think that's pretty good on Beryl. And I don't know if you have the NHC page up real quick before you stop sharing,
Yeah,
but
I
I
can
don't think there were any other significant threats at the moment. But we can.
No, I don't believe there were. There is one other area, 20% chance. So it's a little higher in the 7-day, and I did see some models taking it in the same path as Beryl, but correct me if I'm wrong here, but usually when storms do that, they don't tend to do too well because of the upwelling. There's also remnants of Chris. I don't remember when Chris formed. It might have formed briefly and then dissipated all within the same 12-hour period, but doesn't seem to be any threat to anybody. So, and I guess we can scroll through the Pacific as well. Pacific seems quiet, at least the East Pacific, and the Central Pacific also seems quiet. So
Huh.
all's quiet on the Western front.
All right. Well, thank you. Let's see. So how about if you'd like, I can share
Yep.
here and we'll talk a little bit about June. So let's see here. We're gonna first of all, thanks to our friends at Maxar here for sharing this page with us. So this is the June CDDs, and we're looking at sort of the rankings here. And the first thing I just wanted to point out here was number one on the list. So these rankings go back to 1950. It's basically pop weighted US, and you can see it came in close to 305. And what's impressive about that number is you can see not only is it number one, but it's number one by easily. The next highest here was 292, 293, and 289, 280. So you can see how more closely they were kind of aligned here. But this season or this past June broke the record by was about 12 CDDs. So number one. Let's look at how that looked in terms of the pattern, and here it is. And so it's one of those things where this is I think kind of rare where you see this, but basically from a coverage standpoint, in the continental United States, almost the entire lower 48 was above normal, except for you can see right near the Canadian border for some of those locations up there. But that was a big part of it, the fact that you had just widespread all the major demand areas, meaning like the Northeast, Mid-Atlantic, the Midwest, ERCOT, Texas, Southeast, and then key locations in the Southwest, like near Los Angeles. So all of the major demand areas above normal, and some of these well above normal, including like in particular the Southwest, but the PJM. So you put those things together and you end up with the warmest June on record. So that's kind of where we stand. And let's see, before we shift over to July, Michael, any other thoughts on the June that we just got past?
Yeah, I think it was impressive how warm it was, not just in our own backyards where the heat felt quite oppressive, um, but nationally, and even it's not too hard to imagine this could have been even warmer. If some of those anomalies in the west, instead of winding up in Utah, wound up in the southeast instead, or further east into Texas, or etc. Or that cold wasn't in Canada, which it's nice today, so I guess that must be where that came from. But it's just goes to show you that despite having an almost perfect setup for a record warm month and getting a record warm month, we still could have even been warmer. So not looking forward to future Junes if this is what's in store.
Well, it's funny you say that because is that kind of where we are now, like almost like a recency thing where like because I know like the past year, the past 6 months in particular, I mean there's been a lot of reports I don't have them memorized, but in terms of how warm this period's been from a national global standpoint, and yeah, is it like we're almost acclimated where if you have a month, and I'm exaggerating here slightly, but like where I don't know, 25 of the days are above normal, but then you have those 5 or 6 or 7 days that are below normal, and you're like, boy, if a few more of those days that were below normal, we're above. But it's like, no, already, like no, like it's already such a high, number of days that are above normal. It should be more like split like 15-15 or 20-10 and stuff like that, but we're just
Yeah.
so acclimated to most of these months being way above normal.
Yeah,
All
I'm
right.
actually. Can you actually go back to the degree days data?
Yeah.
I kind of want to see how far above the 10 and 30 year. So
No, it's up
we're.
here. So
Oh,
10 years.
right, right. That's.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, you can
yeah.
see
So
it
we're
from that too, but
so we're
265.
yeah. So 40 and 60 respectively. It's to get that warm. I mean, that 10 years from 14 to 23, which includes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ish of the top 11 warmest, or I guess not counting 2024 would be 4 of the top 10 warmest. So we've got a lot of warm data in the 10 year, and yet we still blew the 10 year out of the water, which is it just amazes me just how outrageously hot it's been this entire June, and uh, um maybe a good segue. July looks to be heading towards more of the same.
Yeah,
Maybe not
yeah.
as warm, but
Let's look at July, and a nice thing here that Max offers is we can they'll give you also preliminary view of their forecast through since today's only July 1st. So there's the projected map. So obviously it's very very early, but it definitely looks like somewhat similar to June in the sense that wide coverage of warm anomalies. There's I guess one little blip in Nebraska of below. But let's see, as you aggregate this to CDDs, it looks like here's how it would work out. Again, this is since 1950, so you can see you've got it looks like 74 years based on their math. This would 2024 would rank here where it says target, so number 5 effectively at 400 and approximately 2 CDDs. If you're wondering, hey, what would it take to be a record? Well, 2011 is the record here at the top, and that's about 15 CDDs more. So certainly, just based on my experience, not predicting this, but certainly well within reach at this point, July 1st, for a forecast to change by 15 CDDs. I've seen a 24-hour forecast shift by 15 CDDs. Maybe not as much in the summer, but it can happen. So well within reach. So the bottom line right now is, obviously another very warm month is projected here. And number 5, and I'm guessing if we looked at June, July together, based on this projection, let's just do it real quick. I'm guessing it would rank near number 1, if not number 1. Yeah. So if this July comes in as projected, and a lot of the forecasts are for above. I've seen other forecasts very similar to this. Then we would be at the warmest or hottest June, July on record. Records in this case being since 1950, and we would do it by what is that? Not quite 20 CDDs, but 15 to 20 CDDs. So let me go back here to July here, and then we can maybe talk about it a little bit more. And Michael, I was just thinking about what you were saying here. I mean, even with this above normal, it seems like let me see if I can switch over to their maps here. I'm just going to show the shorter range because it's not like we're not getting it's not like it's 30 straight days of above normal
right.
temperatures. Here Michael and I live here in the Northeast, and certainly today's a beautiful day. It's probably a few degrees below normal. Here you can see the GFS operational composite for the next 5 days. Again, it gives you a ballpark view. It might not verify exactly, but you can see here there's going to be some blows and across some important areas of the country, Midwest and PJM over where closer to where we're located. But if you start looking toward the 6 to 10, let me switch over to the ensemble too, just to get a more consistent view. 6 to 10, you see now PJM East Coast get a lot warmer, and yeah, the 11 to 15 is a little bit warmer yet. So I think I'll just say one other thing here. Let me just turn over to Michael. I want to be careful myself because I was just thinking about how I opened up about talking about record and stuff like that. Again, I want to be clear. I was just talking about what it would take to be a record because we're all interested in records and certainly in records and reach. But, I think the other thing to keep in mind here is could it come in cooler? I mean, maybe that's an obvious question, but the answer is yes. I mean, and you can see, like, even some of the cool days that we're seeing, or relatively cool days that we're seeing right now, I think some of them were underpredicted, like the one in the 1 to 5 day period in particular. You can see even, you can see the forecast is an evolution warmer, but we also know here, Michael and I, that 11 to 15 day forecasts don't always verify as expected. And taking a peek earlier at the MJO signal, I don't think it's crystal clear in terms of what it's suggesting in terms of warmth and cold. So we certainly, a lot of the forecasts are certainly projecting a well above normal July. But I would say here that, in my opinion, anyway, just based on my interpretation, high level interpretation of things, that disclaimer, but that there are risks on both sides, and of course, we're not even talking about risks associated with tropical cyclones and such like that. Like Beryl and perhaps others later in the month, but occasionally, you'll have a situation too where a tropical cyclone can cause cool risk to a forecast, right? If it barrels in, into parts of the United States, the Southeast, Gulf Coast, or whatever, it can dump a lot of rain and kind of diminish temperatures there for a while. But those are just some initial thoughts on July. Michael, what are you thinking here? What are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, I see, just looking kind of at the Maxar maps here, it looks like we could be heading towards another warm month, uh, doesn't looks like it's a pretty strong ridge signal on the west coast with the temperatures there at least. Um, Also some type of ridging signal, possibly with I think they Bermuda High, I think it's called, off the east coast maybe. That's again speculation, of course, but it certainly, with the way the temperatures are kind of tilted, it kind of looks to me like it'd be like that kind of flow. But it looks like it could definitely be a warm month. Certainly, the Maxar forecast is top five. That could, and as Dave said, that could easily swing either way. It could come in cooler. It could also come in warmer. The month just started, and we have 30 days to get through, and a lot of things can change in those 30 days. So, the one thing to keep in mind though is, it's summer heat, and this kind of just thought came to me as Dave was talking. Heat stroke and heat exhaustion are some serious things, and don't screw around with that. Make sure if you're going to be outside in the heat, stay hydrated. Obviously, there's quite a bit of it this summer, with June coming in record, July coming in potentially close to a record, and I doubt August will be much better. But that'll be for next month's discussion for August. But got to make sure you're keeping yourself hydrated if you're going to go outside. But back to the weather aspect, does look to be, I'm thinking warm here. It's looking warm, and there'll probably be a few nice days like today. I think this is probably the nicest July 1st I've ever
Yeah,
seen,
yeah,
at least in our neck of the woods.
yeah.
So, but the rest of the month, I already see the later in the week, it looks like we're getting back into the 90s, and I'm sure the humidity will follow. And as my professor at Rutgers once said, the yuck factor will be off the charts.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I'll be in the city, so it'll be the humidity, the temperature, the heat, and the smog or pollution, which, yeah,
uh,
trifecta.
does not sound fun.
Yeah, I know. Um, all right. Yeah, I think those are good points. So we'll see. And I know the only thing I'll throw in there too, and again, a lot of folks who follow this more closely than I probably already know this, but like uh, I think some of the forecast here in terms of why is July so hot? The signals that I've seen in some of the reports I've watched, a couple of things going on. One, a persistence factor. June we just talked about record high. And I know a lot of folks tend to find a persistent signal, especially kind of in the summer, like a June, July, August. Some of the statistics there historically tend to show some relationship, some persistence. So I think some folks are banking on that. And then the other things, the fact that we're now pulled out of El Nino toward La Nina. Some research on that with some groups suggesting warm signal. Also, the negative PDO. That's a signal out in the Pacific Ocean that, again, some groups find to be a warm signal net for the United States. And then finally, at least what I'll mention anyways, global SSTs, but in particular Atlantic SSTs that could have an impact or are maybe having an impact for the East Coast. And obviously, there's a lot of major markets right along that I-95 corridor that contribute to the national CDD. So again, those are just some things that I've witnessed and seen that some of these groups I think are baking into that this 400 CDD kind of number. So we'll see how it works out. Let's see, Michael, anything else you want to add here before we close it out?
Yeah, I just want to just toss in a little point on your the SSTs in the Atlantic. I think last year and maybe even probably heading towards it again this year, I think it hit 101 degrees in the waters off of Key West.
Mm.
And it's not hard to imagine the waters being fairly above normal across the eastern seaboard and the Gulf Coast. And a lot of those, maybe not so much the Gulf Coast, but at least the East Coast, you kind of rely, when you get that southeast wind, kind of rely on that to lower temperatures a little bit, at least on certain coastlines. During the summer, you normally, see temperature in a heat wave with a southeast wind. You probably expect 92, 93, 94 inland or something along those lines. And, close to the coast, you'd probably see like 75, closer to what the ocean temperature is. But if the ocean temperature is 83, well, now all of a sudden that lower, maybe that changes the dynamic a lot and can cause, a drastic increase in CDDs that you don't normally see. So certainly and there's other factors to consider with SSTs as well, and I'm not going to go into that since we're about out of time anyway. But yeah, I just wanted to toss that in there. There's a good point that you made.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, and I think those are some probably pretty good comments to finish on. So Michael and I will leave you there. We plan to see you again probably about this time next month, so around August 1st, and we'll see how things pan out. How's that sound, Michael?
Yeah, sounds good to me. And hopefully we aren't looking at a record August.
Yeah, we'll see. All right, take care, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. So long.